Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gen Z Votes. My name is Pratik, and today we have Sriram Madhav joining us today on this episode. So here's a little bit of background. He's really passionate about AI with over 22 years of different experience in the IT industry. He's a CTO or the Chief Technology Officer currently of provenio.ai and is responsible for strategy, design, and development of provenio.ai. He's also the CTO and the co-founder of NetLabs Australia, and he has extensive experience in planning and implementing RPA tools like Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, UiPath, and more. I greatly appreciate the time you're taking out of your day to be here with me, and thank you so much. How are you doing today?
Pratik, I'm doing good. How about you?
Good.
I
Yeah.
like your channel. I like the way it is. It's shaping up. Good job.
Thank you, thank you. So let's get right into it. It won't take too much of your time. Could you just tell everyone your journey, how have you navigated through the field of AI, your childhood and background? How have you sort of carved your career?
Sure. Um, I come from a very famous town in India, in the southern part of India, from Karnataka, a place called Mysore. Mysore is, I'm sure many people would have heard about Mysore. Um, it's a very good city with a lot of palaces and stuff like that, and quaint little city away from the hustle and bustle of any typically Bangalore, which is about 3 hours away. My childhood was there, my education was there, and then I moved to Bangalore to start working. I actually started working in Mysore, started teaching computer science and electronics in one of the institutes there, and then moved to Bangalore, where I got my first corporate job in a company called Phoenix Global Solutions. Did infrastructure work there, started working as a desktop specialist, and then I moved on to become a data center engineer and a networking engineer, gained a lot of experience there. And then the company was bought over by TCS. Moved into TCS, worked there for almost close to 13 odd years. Did a lot of roles in TCS, starting from project management to program management to technology modernization. Ran a few programs in the US. I lived in the US for a while. Um, um, had customers like Toyota and Avery Dennison in the West Coast. Then I moved to a company called Wipro in 2012. There I was heading up the artificial intelligence group. Started to do a lot of work around bringing out artificial intelligence into the enterprise rather than it was all in the labs before. So I moved to Australia in 2015 to Sydney and started heading the artificial intelligence business for Wipro here in the Asia Pacific region, which included Japan as well. So yeah, 2018, actually 2019, I thought I should do something on myself, and started NetLabs, and then I joined hands with Provenio, which is a startup. We have 5 partners, and we're doing proper AI work as of now, and I'm the CTO. Yeah, it's been a great journey, a lot of learnings, exciting stuff. AI has been a part of my career from the last almost 10 years. So I like it. How it is shaping up, and like the proposition of where it will go. So exciting stuff.
And you talked about computer science in India. Did you initially have an attraction towards computer science and programming, or is that something like how did you know that that's something that you wanted to pursue in the long term?
Yeah, it's a good thing. I back in college days, I don't know if if the generation um, Gen Z kids today even have heard of something called as a microprocessor, or MUP. There used to be the first one, very first microprocessors was I think 8084 or 8085. I think it's 8085, and then came the Pentiums, and then the ICDs and those kind of things. So back in the day, we used to learn about microprocessors and programming in microprocessors. We used to get used to get a microprocessor kit where you had to actually type in the entire code for a long thing. So you could do simple programs like Fibonacci series and even in odd numbers and traffic pattern generation, traffic light generation and stuff like that. I got hooked onto it, and with a mentor of mine in Mysore, his name is Vinay. He taught us a lot about it, and we started doing what we call as discotheque lights. So it was one of the projects. So we did actually lights for discotheques, and then that became a full time kind of a thing. And we did a little bit of event management and gave us some pocket money at that point in time. And but I got hooked on to microprocessors and the aspects of programming around it. Did a lot of work around with COBOL and Pascal. I don't know if you guys have even heard of those kind of programs, but um, and then infrastructure related things caught my attention a lot, which is essentially things like managing servers, managing storage, managing networking, security with respect to networking, switches and hubs and firewalls and whatnot. So yeah, it kind of started with microprocessors, got into infrastructure, and then eventually got into cloud, and then cloud took me to a lot around AI and automation and stuff like that.
Right. And throughout all of your experience, what would you say maybe is one of your like most memorable achievements or biggest achievements, and what's been your driving force that's been keeping you to be motivated in AI?
Cool. I would say I really haven't achieved very great things. I think staying humble is very important. Staying the fact that the moment you start thinking that you've achieved something, that's probably the end of it. That's what I feel. So staying humble and making sure that you want to learn more is important. I would say instead of achievements, you can call it some highlights in your life. Yeah, I've had some highlights. Um, the first thing, the foremost thing is, especially in IT and in life, right? So both go together. In IT, in my career as such, being able to, come from the basics, having done a lot hands-on, and then being able to contribute in a startup and make it as successful as possible till now. That's a good achievement. I always wanted to carve out a path for myself to become a CTO. So that's one thing. Second achievement, I would say, back in the day, long ago, I got an opportunity to work with the Indian cricket team as a cricket analyst. Did traveled with the team for about 4 years. Um, I did a lot of statistical analysis, did a lot of um, planning for the Indian cricket team back. This was back in the year 2000 to almost 2003, 2004. So that was, I would say, is another highlight of my career. Third, most important thing is to be able to embrace technology, learn and mentor a lot of people. I have mentored quite a few people, quite a few youngsters in my career. That also is a very good highlight for me. That's on the career side, but career won't be possible without the support of family. Um, my parents, my wife, my son, they've all really helped me with my career, and being able to share success with them, be a part of the having able to be with my family is another great highlight and achievement, I might call it. So yeah, that's about it.
Right. And you talked about the startup being a lot of, one of your highlights. Could you tell us about your current involvement with Provenio and the what do you do? What is the entire brand and things like that?
Absolutely. So we Provenio, when we started about 3.5 years back, the idea was to bring what I call as the digital workforce and the human workforce together. So we actually have two businesses. One is called provenio.ai and one is provenio people. So the idea was to bring people and technology together. So that was where it started. And then we started developing AI solutions. The ultimate goal was to develop products which is relevant to the Australian market. So when we started developing solutions, one of the biggest areas in Australia which is really suffering a lot, and it was suffering a lot, and COVID activated it a little bit more, if I may say that. It's the freight and logistics industry here in Australia. So we started creating AI solutions, which eventually became products for the freight and logistics solutions, for freight and logistics market here in Australia. So what we have is Provenio AI as a platform has two products in it, which is one is called Freighty, which essentially is for end-to-end freight audit and compliance. And the second product is called Trepo, which we call as an intelligent three-way PO matching. So in business sense, in the freight and logistics side, whether it is the order to cash cycle or the P2P cycle. So O2C and P2P are very important business processes. We kind of automate the end-to-end life cycle with the use of artificial intelligence. So what our AI does today with these two products is it has trained and curated intelligent models which can do document intelligence. It can read documents, understand documents, interpret documents, and actually validate documents. It can do the same thing with images. So it has image intelligence. And the third part is it has web intelligence, which means that it can navigate through a lot of websites, web pages, gather intelligence, and make sense of a lot of things. So essentially, we have complicated models which we have been training over the last 3 years. We use advanced machine learning models. So at the end of the day, what the user, the main point is the artificial intelligence within all these platforms needs to tell the user or give the user what I call as actionable intelligence. So we use something called as human in the loop, which is essentially the AI telling you that, hey, I found this, you should do this, this, and this, right? So it's essentially simplifying it for the user using a very a beautiful interface, and then essentially interacting with the user also and collecting feedback from the user and fine tuning the models. So both Freety and Trepo, they've been in the we've been doing both the product as in products live from almost 2 years now. We have multiple customers using it to automate end-to-end processes. We have 3PL, 4PL companies. We have FMCG companies, CPG companies who are essentially consumers of freight, and actual freight companies who both use AI. So it's quite leading edge, if I may call. We're also one of the very few companies here in Australia. We've used what we call as a generative AI, which is, I think, now the buzzword or the flavor of the year, if I may say. That one, we use it for domain interpretation and domain contextualization, which is a very big thing in AI. So yeah, the journey has been great. As a CTO, my job here is to make sure that we use AI. We really use AI because there are a lot of companies out there which say that they use AI, but they don't. But we essentially are in the business of showing customers that it is real AI. But also a lot of my work goes in building number one, ethical AI, which means that whatever you use should be really ethical. Second part of my job is to make sure that we use unbiased data sets to train our AI, which means that there should not be any bias, or there should be what is called a sufficient bias, because there are certain data sets wherein you need to introduce some amount of bias, which is male and female and those kind of things, right? So, but that's the second part, and the third part is, which is very exciting for me, is about explainability of AI, which means if the AI is doing something, it needs to explain to you in simple manner what it did, and if it can't explain, no point in having AI, right? So the three cornerstones, which I call as ethics, bias, and explainability. So those are the three things which kind of gives me um, a lot of excitement, in this particular platform. So that's what we get in Provenio AI at this stage. So exciting journey.
So talking about AI ethics, and we just talked about also human in the loop systems that you're involved with. What are some of the biggest challenges from a ethics perspective that you think that you, but also other companies have to deal with right now, given the increase on focus on, privacy, data privacy, and regulation of AI?
Yeah, it's a very very broad topic, something which everybody has on their hands now. There are a lot of ways in which people are battling it, but lack of standardization is a big issue. But let me kind of dial back and look at what is really the problem on hand, right? Problem on hand is, for a model to get intelligent, you need lots of data, and often businesses don't have data, and they kind of scramble in multiple places to get whatever data is possible. But that data could be completely, I mean, you don't have a way to check what's the authenticity of the data and what does the data really contain. If you have used your own master data from your own enterprise, that's a different angle, but it could be still intrinsically biased, right? It would have intrinsic biases, but at the same time, if you start developing models based on intrinsically biased data, then the outcome could or could not be ethical, right? It depends on a lot of situations. So it goes back to the fact that data, nobody knows whether their data is clean. I would say a majority of them, I wouldn't say nobody, but then a majority of them don't know whether the data sets are clean. Second one, what is ethics, right? What is the right ethical standard or the ethical um, rule set I have to follow? So there is no standard today for ethics as such. It depends on what kind of business you are in, right? And what kind of matching. So for example, if you were to um, I'll give you a simple example. There was an engine done here wherein which for recruitment, and then somebody was recruiting for a job in the mine, right? And then AI suggested only men for that job, right? Because it was trained on previous data, it was trained on multiple data sets. But then the question is, why can't women do that job, right? So it is that answer ethical? Is that AI suggesting stuff which is ethical? Now it's a question. There's no answer. There's no one answer to it, right? If the business person wants it in a certain way, then he could do it in a certain way. But then back to the fact that there's no standard. There's no one way of doing things. So like this, there could be thousands and thousands of examples where AI could be suggesting something at the same time, take online retail, for example, right? With the amount of changes happening, what the AI is really suggesting, you really don't know whether that is ethical, non-ethical at times, right? You could be underaged, and it could be suggesting something overaged for you, right? So those kind of problems will be there. I'm sure all of you students have been using Chat GPT. Have you used it?
Yes, yes.
Do you think it's ethical?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, also with, Sam Altman being fired and rehired, Microsoft getting a spot on the board, it's up to question. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's where everybody is battling. But again, there's an answer to everything, right? There's a way in which everything can be handled. So um, the easiest thing anybody can start with is basically making sure that their data is clean, right? There is a way of doing it. There is a way of feeding the right set of data into your AI models and making sure that you capture biases, intrinsic biases very clearly, and then essentially carving models out of it, whether it is for accuracy or those kind of things. So I follow a few standards to do here in Provenio AI. As I said, there's no silver bullet. There's no one answer wherein it can solve the world's problems. But there are methods in which you can potentially show that you're clean, right, and you're ethical. Um, it could get a little tricky when it comes to medical, in the field of medicine, field of whether it is payer or the provider side of things. Um, the AI is supposed to, at some point in time, read all your medical records and suggest certain things. Will it be ethical there? Food regulation is a big thing. Protein sequencing, there is a lot of AI being done. Uh, where human lives are being touched, right? Ethics become a very big question where AI is involved. If you ask it to synthesize a protein or sequence a protein, um, how do you know whether it's sequencing the right thing or the wrong thing, right? So those kind of aspects become extremely questionable, and unless and until you have very strong ethical guidelines or standards, you wouldn't see light of the day. But yeah, we're getting there. A lot of standards are being put in place. Governments are acting very swiftly here. They're putting standard guidelines for ethics, standard guidelines for security, data standards, unbiased data, etc. So yeah, there's hope, and we'll get there.
Right. So, in terms of the next, like, I would say maybe decade or the near coming future, how would you see AI being more involved in, I mean, we've already seen AI taking over a lot of jobs slash potentially replacing people are somewhat worried about that. How do you see the AI in the next, decade or so influencing our life? And how would you say that Gen Z in the next generation has a, obligation and role in helping in that?
Yeah. See, I always have this theory that AI is kind of influencing all of us in some shape or form, right? Um, let's just look at the history for a while. When do you think was the first AI concept kind of which sprung up in I think in the late I think it was 43 when Turing did his Turing test, Alan Turing, and then that was when there was some kind of construct for machine for you to basically see whether the machine was intelligent. Um, 50s is when the 50 late 50s or mid 50s is when I think AI was officially coined, which is artificial intelligence by John McCarthy. Um, After that, there was a lot of onus on essentially looking at AI over the 60s and the 70s. AI kind of sprung up everywhere. I mean, there were bots and robots, and there were concepts. Machine learning came up, deep learning came up, a lot came up. But then there was something called AI winter, right? Kind of went cold for a while, and then probably in the late 90s and then in the early 2000s is when it really started to spring up, and then population had increased, the demand has increased, demand supply became a big problem in the world. So people started using AI technologies to kind of make lives easier, to automate more and more, and then essentially look at creating more jobs, those kind of things. So um, over the last 10, 15 years, I often quote saying that we are all using it, we are all trusting it, and we are all improving it, right? Let's take examples. Like, I'm sure you have been in a Tesla car, right? How many times do you get into Tesla car not believing in it? Right? Have you been in an airplane? You have been in an airplane. Do you get into an airplane without trusting it? Um, uh, Simple example. Do you use Google Maps?
Yeah.
So how many times does Google Maps ask you to drive off a cliff?
No.
Right? Never. So you trust it, don't you? And it's got your trust over a period of time. So I'll come to back to this point about trust. So when you're trusting it, there is a part, it becomes a part of your life in some or the other way. That's number one. In the enterprise sense, so that's the way AI made entry into all our human lives, right? Now, Chat GPT, you ask a question, it will give you beautiful answers, it will explain well, blah, 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 right? But when it comes to the enterprise as such, people have been using AI for productivity improvement, for to replace mundane jobs, people doing mundane and repeatable jobs with AI. That will always happen. Whether it was green revolution or inventing the machines, inventing the engines, inventing smarter engines, that has always happened. We have seen revolutions, right? We have seen revolutions where the machine ultimately takes over. But humans don't go extinct, right? Humans invent that. Humans use it. Humans abuse it at some point in time, and then they'll come over that whole cycle. So at a macro level, AI won't really replace everything. The robots won't literally walk around the streets killing everybody. No, that won't happen. But what will happen definitely is that all the repetitive, mundane things will definitely be done by AI over a period of time. That gives an opportunity for the human being to upskill or do the right thing, right? So I always, at provenio.ai, we always use AI to augment humans. We never say we'll replace it. So the augment part is for enabling the human to make much faster decisions and take much more informed decisions. In that sense, humans actually are now having more time to do much better things. What is better, and can they really upskill themselves to do something better, is what an enterprise challenge is. So, right? So it's not only taking out people and automating their jobs. It's about creating that next level of things wherein they can use the maximum brain power of all these people, right? So I think there will be a world where it will come down to a sense that, yeah, all the low hanging so-called fruits or things which can be automated easily will be automated anyways, or it's already automated. So people will have to upskill. People will have to stay with it. But the ecosystem will be that AI and humans will coexist. We'll find out better methods of using it. It will at some point in time do much better things. But humans will evolve. That's the easiest way of putting it. Humans will start doing other things. Humans will start doing better things. Is what I always feel. So no, there's no threat there. But what it also gives, when you create something amazing, there's always a negative side to it, right? When there's always security concerns, there's always ethical concerns, etc. That is something which will be a battle. That obviously, we've seen so many frauds, online frauds happening with the use of AI. Um, I was reading yesterday about somebody using a voice cloning machine yesterday, some last week, and they used a voice cloner to call somebody who was in distress, and then they asked them to transfer money. So these kind of things, voice cloning is just new off the block. Image cloning is new off the block. Deepfake is quite now, it's very popular with generative AI. These aspects will struggle. I mean, we will struggle with these kind of things, but as long as there's standards, as long as people awareness and education becomes important. So education and awareness is super critical. So for you at school nowadays, you might be learning concepts about AI and stuff like that, but it needs to be widespread. It needs to be across rural areas. It needs to be across not just urban areas, but across the globe. It needs to get rooted into the education system to say, hey, this is what it is now, and this is what's the technology. Education systems is outdated in quite a few places. We all know. So I think this, as I said, humans will find out a way and they'll adapt to it. They will make sure that machines and humans will coexist.
Yep, sure. And the last thing I have to ask you is, in general, this doesn't have to be AI related, technology related. What is some advice and the message you would give towards the next generation? And yeah, what do you have to say about
Yeah, absolutely. Look, AI is something which you cannot hide from, right? You um, First of all, acceptance is very important. That's number one. Right? Num Number two, yeah, the cornerstones of security, ethics, bias, all of those are important. But for the generation which is at this stage, the one advice I have is I think take the longer path of understanding it well, of getting deeper into it, because we're all in the age of instant gratification, if I may call it, especially the younger generation. And that's not negative. It's the way the world is progressing. But when it comes to certain technologies, instant gratification or instant things might not work. So my advice, one advice is to basically take a little bit longer route to understand the technology, to understand its implications, and more importantly, to understand where the wins are, where are the use cases, where are the ones which where really AI can make a difference. Right? People have been talking about using AI to cure cancer. Right? People have been talking about AI to detect life outside Earth, right? People have been talking about using AI to cure many diseases because it's all about pattern synthesis and analysis and stuff. There is the moment you start understanding its implications, its applications, its true use and true power, then you're literally boundaryless. You can then start using it for many things. So my advice to a lot of Gen Z is number one, first understand the real use cases of AI. Right? And there are many use cases which I can talk maybe for 2 days. We can probably have another session which says what are some of the real wins of AI in the market, right? Whether it is in the medicine industry or whether it is in the banking industry, retail industry, um, there's phenomenal work happening at this stage. Whether it is, I can classify it into AI being reactive, AI being preventive, and AI being proactive. Right? People are using it to make sure that if there's something happening, AI will handle it. It will basically make sure that it will tell you to prevent something happening. Like I'll give you an example. In Australia, have you heard of bushfires? Bushfires are very rampant in Australia. So the government is working with multiple companies to detect weather patterns, detect patterns in certain areas which are very risky areas, and number one, predict that there could be a bushfire and then prevent it. Right. So this is true application to save lives, to save Earth. Right. Second aspect is environmental aspects, which means your carbon emissions are going out of the roof. How can AI really predict carbon emissions or decrease carbon emissions? Everybody has a goal now saying that 2030 they'll do something. But how can really AI prevent it? Right? Third thing is contamination aspects, so in water, in air, etc., etc. These are all very critical and crucial elements which youngsters will have to understand now that AI can be used not just writing code or writing a poem or writing an essay, right? So it is about larger than life things which need a deeper understanding of AI. So, I mean, the I keep saying this, Pradeep, when in the current age, right? In the current set of things, we probably have three types of AI. One is artificial narrow intelligence, which I call as weak AI. Second one is artificial general intelligence, which I think is what is there now, which I think is strong AI. and artificial super intelligence, which is all around consciousness, where really AI can emulate the human senses, right? Typically, we all did narrow intelligence, which is rule based. It's kind of predetermined and it's linear and stuff like that. Artificial general intelligence, which is now, is strong enough. So Tesla, if you ask, is Tesla general intelligence or super intelligence? It's actually general intelligence. We've never gone into super intelligence still. So the general intelligence is around cognitive algorithms. It's about machine learning and stuff like that, right? Then comes at some point in time, it's still fiction. It's on paper, but um, when AI can really emulate, and surpass humans, and basically whether it is decision making or emotions and creativity and those kind of areas, that's when AI will really become super intelligent. So why I'm saying this is because today's youngsters essentially, a lot of people think that it's all simple and you can get everything in ChatGPT. No, there's a lot more to it. So you need to get into the fact that AI is in this stage, but AI has the potential to go into super intelligence, right? Yeah, it has its own perils, but it can be controlled. So um, the fact that the youth today are exposed to things like natural language processing, natural language generation, natural language interpretation, deep learning, computer vision, object detection, OCR, ICR, cognitive computing as such, quantum computing, reasoning, explainability. All of these are all various areas in which you can really do wonders within AI. So it is about essentially getting into it, understanding a little bit more, um, and 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 trying to get into one or two areas. Again, you could be doing anything in and my son does a little bit of flying, so he is interested in overall aviation and stuff like that, and aviation engineering and stuff like that. But he is trying to now look at, there's a lot to do with drone engineering, which is all around AI, right? Just imagine, a drone firing a missile because it detected something wrong. Right? This is where the accuracy and then the perfection matters with AI. It can't be perfect at some point in certain cases, especially with human lives and stuff like that. So back to the fact that there is a lot more than just to like a chat GPT or a chat bot or essentially playing games and stuff like that. Half the games are created by AI anyways nowadays. But getting a little bit more deeper, the youngsters of today have a brilliant opportunity, and they are the future anyways. So they have a very brilliant opportunity to shape up a whole new world out there, right? There's a lot of reverse change happening in the world, right? Environmental issues are creating, um, people say that the ice is melting away and those kind of things. But yeah, all of this can be prevented with the right set of people working on the right set of things. But it requires that next level of depth, is what I feel with youngsters. Education will play a big role. I think all of us will have to play a role. It's not just expecting that the government does something or the education system does something. All of us have a role to play. We have to play our part in some shape or others, right? It's with starting by doing what you can, right? Educating people is number one. Participating in debates, participating in sharing your thoughts with whether it is blogs or whether it is articles. These are all simple things which you can do to basically tell people, here's what is impacting. And I really have to praise what you're doing here with the YouTube channel, and you're interviewing people. I did look at a couple of your interviews. One was with a doctor, one was with a student in Harvard. I think these are all the right things to do because you're able to now share people's thoughts to a lot of other people with an interview format, which is great because collective intelligence is what will run the world at some point in time. So I know it's a long answer for a short question, but I think it was important.
Yeah. Completely. I really appreciate the time you took with me, giving me extremely detailed responses today. And like you said, I think we can talk again. I mean, I think there's a lot more we can talk about. So I hope that, we can talk again. Thank you so much for the advice and, for the time you took today.
Thanks, Pratik. All the best. Good luck,
Thank you.
and see you sometime later.
See you soon.